Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Okay, so not did I only get my MacBook Pro fixed, they threw in an extra, a new battery and a new trackpad too. I kind of knew about the trackpad business being linked to if they have to replace the entire keyboard, but don't really know what the battery was about, but it feels like I've got a brand new MacBook Pro again.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, you really scored on that one.
Yeah, definitely. And there was, because I knew that when I had the stage lighting problem, just the screen brightness in general had dropped right down. And so getting a fresh screen again and having it at the proper brightness and seeing it in full color and everything was really great. I did notice that the new keyboard has more of a matte feel to it, which is quite interesting. And I've actually got a different glyph on the Option key. It used to have the word Alt, and then now it's got the little glyph there. So, yeah, it certainly does feel like I've got something newer. But, yeah, it was quite a quick turnaround. You know, they just inspected it, got the parts in, and the next day they were able to, do it over a couple of hours. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Really cool.
All right, so speaking of things that don't go so well, let us know about your beta experience.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, like, Apple even put an explicit warning on this one to wait for the public beta later in the month, but I only have my main devices as development devices also, and I wanted to try out some of the new development features, so I was in the end forced to upgrade, but overall it's been pretty good. I haven't had any of like the common issues like battery life or like anything like that, but I've had a number of issues, so I guess I'll just run through some of them. That, I mean, it is beta software, and it's not like, a warning against iOS 13 down the track. It's a warning against installing a beta because you want the cool new features. So one of the major things for me is that the way that Siri Shortcuts is now a built-in app breaks a lot of things. So I'm actually able to install the App Store version of Siri Shortcuts and have the built-in one like in a weird buggy way, because the reason I tried that was the voice shortcuts actually change. So in iOS 12, you can set up Siri Shortcuts like system generated ones, suggestions, and they live in the settings pane under Siri. And with those, you can invoke them via your HomePod and they'll run. And the way that those are changed in iOS 13 is that they're migrated to the Shortcuts app. So there's no longer a settings pane with your list of like shortcuts. So when you actually try run any of those ones that were previously from there, they don't work anymore. So the HomePod, but essentially what I'm getting at is you can't use your HomePod for Siri Shortcuts anymore, which is quite a pain for me because I use it to check when the next tram is extremely often. So yeah, not so thrilled about that one.
Do you think that's like that'll just be a permanent decision, or that's like a beta?
Oh no, it's just a beta. I mean, it even explicitly says that the HomePod can't run shortcuts in the beta. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
right.
It even mentions the beta. So yeah, it's all good. Then WhatsApp, although like I think the migration out of settings is a good thing. It's just a bit confusing at first because obviously I didn't know why that was happening, and then I couldn't find those shortcuts. I'm like, has Apple completely done away with that style of shortcut? But yeah, not really. It's just a little bit changed. Then the WhatsApp like conversation view. The most recent messages don't display when you go into the message, like into that message view, but in the table beforehand, showing you all your series of chats, it does show you what the message is. So if you have like a string of messages, you'll just see the most recent one in that table and then not anything else until like some random thing back. So if you use WhatsApp really heavily, especially for anything really important, then I would, steer clear of the beta at this moment. There are some like other like buggy things like receiving calls and stuff, but one of my other frustrating ones is that Swift Playgrounds, usually it has like a tiles view of all of your playgrounds, but for some reason mine is broken, so I can't actually access any of my old playgrounds because they don't display. And if I click new playground, it gets bugged out because it's creating one but not opening it, and then all of them are just being created as new playgrounds. So yeah, it's pretty frustrating on that one. Overall, a word against it: if you are able to steer clear, please just wait. Like, I think there should be a new beta coming out today, Monday, so that should help with a few of those things, but obviously not all. Like, I think the HomePod thing will be an issue till September.
So just to be clear, you're currently running iOS 13 and iPadOS 13?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And you've just left the Mac alone on that for this time?
Oh, no, I'm also running Mac OS 10, and that is even more of a dire situation for me because I've other than for development, I use my Mac to work from home, and it broke a certificate that is required for working from home. So I have to work from home on my iPad, which is not too conducive to work, but yeah, it's a bit of that is really a hassle.
Well, there you go. As Apple stated, thrill seekers. Just wait a little bit for those betas. I certainly will be. Yeah. I think even public beta 1, I'm probably going to hold off until 2 or 3 maybe, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so in this section, we want to cover just some WWDC bits that we didn't previously or something that we've discovered since then. Now, we didn't even touch on CarPlay last time, but I think that's because neither of us actually use it, so it's a bit hard to give proper commentary on it. I do think the new features look great, particularly the lack of mirroring the display on the phone. That's cool. So I'm not sure what your vehicle situation is, but do you think you'll ever get CarPlay?
Yeah, I probably will. Yeah, not in the near future, but I probably will.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of like nice to haves, but I'm not going to be going out and buying a brand new car just for it, I don't think.
Oh, no, I would rather buy you can get a CarPlay unit for around $400.
Yeah.
And I think that's fairly decent, so that would probably be the way that I would go.
All right, so I want to kick this off with iOS. So, yeah, one of the biggest feature requests was the change of how the volume heads-up display looks. And, yeah, it's nice. It's aligned with the volume buttons now and collapses to the side, so it's definitely out of the way. I love how in multi-level within apps, such as settings, there's like a card view now, so you can tell that you're a certain amount of steps down, much like how, Apple Music looks and that sort of thing. The ability to give location access to an app only once, that's really handy because it always feels like a bit of it pops up and you're like, I only really need to do this one quick thing.
Yeah,
so,
I think that is I found it pretty useful. So, I highly recommend using that. I think what happens next time you're going in the app, it does just pop up again, and then you might be tempted to just press the get out of this modal button, and that could be the always allow. So I would just be extra mindful to keep hitting that allow once, because it will come up obviously every single time. So don't get annoyed with it and continue.
I'm pretty stoked with the combined limits for screen time. So you might not want to cut out, say, all apps that are counted as social media or whatever, and there might just be a particular 2 or 3 apps or whatever that you use a lot that you want to cut your screen time down for, and you're able to do that, group them together and apply a limit to that. So I think that's really handy because there's some things like some apps, there's this podcast player, right, that I have that has some social integration in it, and it's classed as a social media app, but it's not really, it's a podcast player. So that gets I get no access to that once the social time runs out. So to be able to, do the combined limits is definitely handy. I love the redesigned share sheet and the fact that they've introduced things like those sharing suggestions like they had in Clips. I haven't used Clips since Clips launched, but I just loving the look of that.
On the share sheet, I think it's categorically worse and one of the biggest regressions in iOS 13. It is horrendous. So the share sheet
Wow.
is a few different components. So most like some of your interactions might just be sharing that to a friend or a colleague or someone. So like sharing to a person, and that happens at the top, the first like row, and that's convenient because it does offer good suggestions, I think, there, especially if most of your conversations happen in messages and email, or like your sharing happens within those. So there will be integration with WhatsApp and stuff like that later on once iOS 13's released. But at the moment, that's all, I can only speak for what's there, and that is better. And then there's another like layer which then becomes sharing to other apps. Like your Instagram opening in Word. Then AirDrop is now moved to there. So I commonly share via AirDrop. AirDrop is also actually part of the suggested one at the top. So that's also still fine. But then every other action is tons worse. For example, copying, like add to up next or play next in music. So what it does is just list them out in a long, like table, and it is in no logical order, and it requires a lot of rework to actually get that to work, and also includes all of your shortcuts that are able to run on that action. So it is like an extremely long list, and it's very painful.
So can you reorder or turn stuff on and off in that section?
You can reorder, so that's fine. But if you like it, the first time is a real hassle. Not a lot of stuff can be turned off. So not individual shortcuts cannot be turned off in that edit menu. Wow. You can turn off like things like copy to things or Evernote or whatever other third-party apps you have. But most of that share sheet for actions like that is categorically worse, and I really dislike it. So is this something you discovered once you actually got to use it? Do you mean
exactly? Like when they displayed it, I was like, oh yeah, that looks pretty cool. But I guess there's a difference between what it looks like and how it actually functions.
So I haven't really played with like like going into shortcuts and seeing if there's an option to not allow certain shortcuts in the share sheet. But yes, that's exactly what happened. So I was just playing some music, wanted to add something to the up next, and we'll get more into 3D touch later. But in iOS 12, I would 3D touch and not lift my finger and just say play next. And now I have to like long press, have it pop up, scroll, look for the up next, edit, move that to the top, move the play like later, also next to it, love this, also next to it. So yeah, it was massively painful.
The regression for me was I like the fact that it, accumulated the different AirPlay devices and put a little, counter on there, but the fact that it was hidden behind like another tap. That sort of seemed like, it's just another extra step to AirDrop.
Yeah, but it does pop up. Sorry, I don't think I was very clear about that, but it does pop up with the AirDrop in that same line as messages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Something that's been asked for a fair while. Now from the control center, you can switch Wi-Fi networks and switch Bluetooth. So that's cool. That's something that I feel like they should have had a fair while ago.
On the Wi-Fi networks, if you have like ask to join turned on, so it used to pop up with like a modal that would be so annoying to join like a free Wi-Fi network, and the new interface is much better. It comes it comes up at the top with like a dismissible notification at the top, just like a little bar, the same way that a message or something would come in, and you can just and I found that to be a lot more reliable in terms of suggesting free Wi-Fi networks than that has ever been. So that's definitely some good work done there.
QR code reader's also got a little bit of love in the control center. Now, when you launch that, it kind of looks more like its own dedicated thing rather than just, built into the camera app. You can choose your image size when you're uploading in Safari, which, there may be some good uses for that. The contact photo and name sharing, and the fact that they're sort of really encouraging you to create your own memoji and apply that. I think that looks pretty fun. I like the fact that they have sort of expanded emoji to the level that they have between that and stickers, etc. So,
with the contact photo and name sharing, with the photo you select there, it asks you if you want to use that across all of your other Apple services. So it'll copy it to like your iCloud and stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
And then it also allows you on a per thread basis to share and not share, so that's pretty convenient.
I discussed all the different photo and video editing tools and how much they've enhanced that, and it's really sort of become its own sort of full featured app in a way. And just scrolling through photos itself, they were talking about hiding duplicates or similar photos, auto playing videos, without the audio, of course, I assume. Which you can toggle on and off, and same with live photos and that. It just has like a bit more of a lively feel to it, I think, which is cool. And it is also a bit of a pain sometimes, scrolling through camera roll, and and you know how it is. You want to get a good photo, and you probably take 10 different ones, and then you remove the rest later. Well, at least you intend to, and so this kind of, at least while you're scrolling through, kind of helps with that. The formatting tools in Mail, I think, is cool. I particularly like how the new toolbar looks. It's sort of a bit more of a dedicated area for doing your attachments and photos and adding a drawing and that. And things like shortcuts. Now, this is only from what I've seen, but I have a lot of people in these shortcuts groups creating ones where it can actually turn on the Apple TV and open the specific Apple TV app and that sort of thing. Did they have that before, or this seems like it's something new?
No, so all of the Apple TV related stuff is new, and it's part of it being treated as like a standalone device in HomeKit, so you can add them to automations and scenes, and same for HomePod and other AirPlay 2 speakers. So that all happens through that and is pretty cool. I didn't know that you could actually specify the app to open on the Apple TV, so that's new to me, but seems really cool.
Yeah, it's something that I thought that they're always going to get to, and it seems like they have. Now there's probably the leading podcast in terms of tech accessibility called Accessible Podcast. Their host Stephen Aquino said that with voice control on devices that have the True Depth camera system, apparently it can tell if the True Depth camera can tell if you're looking at the screen. So if you sort of turn to talk to someone, or someone interrupts you or whatever, it's not going to be sitting there listening for your commands or listening to what you're saying. So that just seems like it's a cool little feature that they didn't exactly specify in the presentation for voice control.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are saying, does this signify, True Depth camera coming to Macs, given the focus on voice control for Mac?
I think we can assume that they'll come at some point.
Yeah.
But I think it's great attention to detail, that specific feature, and just is another area where privacy is, fundamental.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I guess we can expand upon iOS and head into iPadOS territory. So do you have anything you want to kick this off with?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been loving on iPadOS, there have been many things, and I've definitely preferred iPadOS's updates compared to iOS. But so some of the things that are just random things that I've been enjoying is like things like full screen screenshots. So that was, I've been using that a lot for recipes, and that's really pretty helpful, and I just love it in every single way. The, like desktop class browsing in Safari obviously makes a huge difference, for things like that. And I'm also able to, download a machine learning model, and then implement it directly in Swift Playgrounds, which is something, there were two things there that I could not download one before because of the lack of download handling in mobile Safari, and you couldn't actually import a machine learning model into Playground. So those things are both updated now, which has been really awesome for me. one of the things that I didn't expect to like, but I've been using a lot, is the floating keyboard. So when I first downloaded iPad OS 13, I somehow was defaulted to the mini floating keyboard, and I could not for the life of me figure out how to make it bigger. And I was getting furious. And so I vowed to never use it again. But I found that, okay, so by the way, how you make it bigger is you just pinch to zoom and, pinch to zoom out to make it the little floating keyboard again. And it's so convenient just to have that right where your thumb is and swipe. So like the tapping is okay and mildly more convenient, but the combination of the floating keyboard and swiping is insanely useful. It gets a Google search out in no time at all, and it's just really good. So I've been loving that.
That's cool.
The multitasking is also really powerful and equally as confusing as the like keyboard thing. So a lot of like the swipe gesture, there are only so many fingers you have, right? And only so many ways you can understand a swipe gesture. So when you pull up and like a slide over app or like something to go over your original screen, so not side by side it, but just a floating window. When you do that, you'll have two bars. So one of them will be like the home bar, like on iPhone and like on your my iPad, and that bar does not allow you to move the window anywhere. So my original expectation was that I could use that to move it over to the left-hand side, which is not true at all. Then the top bar is where you can pull down and make it into like a side-by-side app, but it will still be there even if the main app behind that screen does not allow side-by-siding. So then I thought, well, maybe that's the one I need to swipe to get the app somewhere else. But then that never worked, right? And equally, I could not ever dismiss this screen. So because I didn't know where to actually, if I pulled left on the...
Move it around.
Exactly. If I try to move it around with the home indicator, it wouldn't go away. So I thought you had to enter, it has its own multitasking if you can have more than one app open at a time, which obviously I couldn't because I could never dismiss it. So I used to have to go into that multitasking and then swipe up to get rid of it. And that was what I thought it was. But it turns out that you are able to move it around as per normal by like swiping just on the right part of that edge. So like wherever, you have to swipe on the left and right edge of that app to be able to move it over to the left and right. Once you get the hang of it, all fine, right? But it just was not like how I felt it used to be. It just wasn't as fluid, like as in where I would expect to swipe. But now that I know how to have multiple, floating apps and have it coming and going in any direction, now that I know how that works, it's one of my favorite features. It is so powerful and amazing. It's really good. So, don't be I'm sure most people wouldn't handle it as badly as I did and just have a good experience from the get-go.
So, a little bit of learning curve, but essentially what you're saying is it's kind of like, it's almost like having an iPhone floating on your screen in the way that you've got that bar down the bottom to, invoke its own app switcher. Then you've got the little bar at the top to be able to, expand it into a split screen app or whatever you want. And then you've got the left and right sides of this floating app to be able to actually, pull it, slide it over to the side or pull it back.
Yep. And then
my
last really great feature on iPad OS is I like to think of it as the right-click style menu. And that's, it is in some way like a bit of a 3D touch or haptic touch without the haptics. It's just like a long press, but those extra contextual options are extremely powerful. And I mean, I will hate on the 3D touch stuff later, but the way apps give you the feedback, the visual feedback when you're clicking on an icon. You know exactly when it's registered that you can lift off, and it will understand, go into the shortcut, like the app icon shortcut, or when you click on something and hold just long enough, you'll know it will pop up with that. So that's been really good. And apps like news and music and messages, they're a lot better now for me now that I have those extra options. So I've really been enjoying that. It's like, 3D Touch essentially has come to the iPad, and it's great.
Yeah. And so this goes into one of my points in that, just when you have an icon on the dock, and then you perform that action when you're doing that long press, and then you get the option for show all windows to kind of show all instances of where that app is. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So some of them have the like normal old 3D Touch like app icon shortcuts, but all of them have show all windows, because obviously you can have the multiple instances now of the same app. So it's definitely really good.
Cool. I like with Today View on the home screen that you can have pinned widgets where if you don't want it to be overloaded, you can have these widgets that are permanently there, and then you sort of just slide up from the bottom to reveal the rest. It also turns out that you can have Today View in a setting with a toggle always show, rather than having to slide it over or slide it away.
Yeah, those are really useful. But I will say, just before you carry on, is that's only in landscape mode.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough screen space. So I like the ability that you can essentially, drag something like an email address or a web address and be able to turn that into a split screen app of its respective app. So if you drag an email address, you can turn that into and have it opened up in Mail.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and same with the web address, and open in Safari. So that's pretty cool. I love the fact that redesigned tool set you can set to auto minimize. So as soon as you start drawing, it then minimizes to the corner. That's really handy for someone like myself. Screenshots, when you're actually cropping in screenshots, apparently it snaps to borders, like visual borders within it, which is really handy rather than having to try and do fine-tuned cropping with your finger. The fact that it could snap to the edge of a box or something would be really handy. Apparently, if your mouse has customizable buttons, you can actually assign actions in iPadOS to those buttons. So you could have and I know that the mouse is designed for accessibility, but it's like these mouse that you can buy with different little buttons across the side. You could have something to trigger a shortcut or whatever straight from the mouse.
Yeah.
And that's possible with iPadOS. That's really
very cool.
There's a whole ton happening with keyboard shortcuts, and apparently now some of them can be linked with taps. So you can do, like in Safari, apparently a hold down shift and then tap on the link on the screen, and it will download the link. That seems really cool. Myself not being the physical keyboard cover user or anything, I've had little experience with the keyboard shortcuts. But is that something that do you use many of those things? Like seeing that you have a smart keyboard cover?
I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, but I haven't really used them like since this update with the keyboard. Like I haven't used Shift and Tap, but yeah, that's an interesting combination. But I use keyboard shortcuts constantly, but they are expanded in iPadOS 13 to be pretty good.
You can now delete apps straight from the update view in the App Store. One thing that I missed out is where is the update section?
It's actually in so you go to your profile, you click your profile picture, and then it's under updates there.
Okay.
So when you swipe there, does it delete the recommendation to do the update, or it actually deletes the app?
I think you can delete the app from there if you want. Yeah. Because it's like, people might suddenly get an update and they're like, oh, I completely forgot I had that app. I don't need that anymore. And you can just do it straight then and there rather than having to locate it. iCloud file sharing. I'm not sure if we mentioned that last time, but that's really cool. I use a program like Dropbox a lot. And I know, not all of my friends and stuff use iOS devices, but yeah, it's something that I've wanted to make more use of iCloud Drive. I do certainly use it a lot more than I have before, and something like this will definitely go a long way towards that.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for that. Unfortunately, people I want to share things with are not running the beta, but yeah, that is going to be really useful for me.
As far as I can tell, you'll just be able to. Will you be able to share it? Because you can give someone a public iCloud file link,
sure,
right? And you'd be able to give them a link to a folder, but they wouldn't be able to actually have sharing permissions if they didn't have an iOS device, an Apple device. I'm guessing.
I guess so. I haven't really tried
you know
it
how
out.
like you know how like okay, with Dropbox someone can actually have permissions in a shared folder and they can drop stuff in there, etc. Versus you actually sharing just a folder where they can view what's inside it and download it. I'm guessing that will work the same way, where it could still serve iCloud Drive could still work like that in terms of that you don't necessarily need to be logged in or using an Apple device to download the files within it, sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, a little thing I'm hoping for is that, so with these sidecar supported apps, as we stated, extending your desktop or mirroring it with your iPad using sidecar can just work, in any form. There's no requirements per se. But in terms of apps, but the sidecar supported apps are the ones that sort of make more use of the fact of the Apple Pencil and the iPad's touch interface, right? And so these sidecar supported apps had that extra contextual menu at the bottom, which was essentially the touch bar functionality. And so I'm hoping from this that some of these creative apps get excited enough about sidecar that they then bring that sidecar additional functionality, which then in turn means more touch bar support, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm hoping that's like a happy outcome of it, given the fact that touch bar still exists, but they don't talk about it much. So yeah.
I am unfortunately, having never used touch bar, not only a touch bar Mac, and thirdly, actually quite transparently being a bit confused about sidecar because I haven't rewatched the keynote or looked anything more into it. But yeah, one of the most confusing things for me is that it doesn't have touch input. Is that correct? So you just operate it with it as like an external screen, and the pencil but the pencil wouldn't be for touching like UI elements, or just be for drawing, or
I think that's what they mean by the sidecar supported apps, is some of them make more use of the fact that the iPad is a touch device.
For like the drawing and stuff, because I thought it wasn't like you can't then touch to like exit a window or something.
I think you might be able to, because you can with services like Duet Display and that.
Yeah,
like it essentially turns it into a touchscreen Mac in a way.
I know that part, but I think there's like some areas where it's not exactly like Duet. So I actually should just try it out. And I have once sent something to Sidecar, but got frustrated within a few seconds, so that was my bad, and then I just gave up. So it was when I was dealing with other issues like not being able to work from home, so not entirely Sidecar's fault.
Of course, yeah. Well, give it a few more, public betas in or whatever, and I'm definitely going to give that the hands-on experience. Anything else with iPad?
Just on the beta things, I think usually the developer beta before the public beta is the one that will be the first public. So that will probably be my next beta. So I can let you know how the next beta goes. And if it's really good, then maybe you can get on a little bit beforehand. Because I think the change freeze happened early May for this current version. They start set it in stone a few weeks before WWDC. So I think we should see quite a few improvements. Hopefully.
Excellent. Yeah. Can't wait for that. WatchOS. There's nothing I didn't really cover in the previous app.
Yes. I actually installed
pretty sure
it.
I've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been going pretty well. I will say it's quite a minor update. I think the two main features that I've noticed, I have a different WatchOS version because it's largely similar. Number one is the new Noise app. So I really like that. And as everyone who listens to this podcast knows, I love the Siri watch face. It's my go-to watch face, and I am a huge advocate for it. And the Noise, like Siri little suggestion thing comes up very appropriately, and I love it. It's so good. So
wow.
I was in a really loud bar last week, and I was able to, just look at my wrist and see exactly how loud it was, get any associated warnings, and open the app and, get further information on that. And it will tell you sustained, like if you have 5 minutes at this level, you'll, have hearing issues that will last 1 to 2 days or whatever it is. So, it's pretty good. I actually really like it, and it's color coded. So, whether you're in the green or the red. And I just think that it works really well. I've seen some tests against, proper decibel readers. Anyway, and it seems really accurate. It's and we can expect that. Other things like the heart rate monitor on the watch are really accurate. So, I think that's good. And then now playing changes. So this was something, I don't know if you use your digital crown to change your volume on your watch when you
all the time.
So be prepared for a change, because on don't worry, it's not that bad. On the WatchOS 5, there's a circular thing, I think, and when you turn the crown, that circle fills up to indicate that the volume is getting louder, right?
Yes.
Now, on WatchOS 6, there's a circle thingy. It's a different color, and no matter how much you turn the crown, it never ever changes in the volume. And that's because that circle now actually gives you the progress through the song. So in the middle of that circle is the play button. And then similar to iOS 13, where the volume indicator is right next to the volume buttons, there is now a similar volume indicator next to the digital crown, which is absolutely tiny. So don't expect to see it when you're
but you can
focused
hear it.
on you can hear the volume change, but when you're focused on the little circle where it used to be, you might not see that. So don't fret. You will still be able to see if you're looking in the right place, but this was another teething issue for me. But now it will
still though
give
that progress circle is cool. Does that apply to podcasts as well?
Well, then I think the now playing screen is generic, so yes, it should.
Yeah, it should. Yeah, because that's something I really want to know. I want to know how long I have left on this podcast I'm listening to as I'm walking the dog, or how far into the song I am, and that's fantastic. I'm glad you gave me the heads up, because I would have been like, it's frozen. So.
Yeah, so that works pretty well.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're just going to finish this off with macOS Catalina. So you had some more thoughts on developer frameworks?
Yeah, so the main reason that I had to upgrade to macOS Catalina is because of the Swift UI live updating. So that when they showed that guy, changing the text color from black to blue or whatever it was, it live updated, and that can happens through something called the console, and the console is only available in macOS Catalina. The other things there's a workaround to get a live update, but anyway, this is I had to update, and it's I've been playing around with Swift UI, and it's pretty cool. Another thing that I do on the Mac is create machine learning models, and I've used CreateML before, as we've discussed on the shot on iPhone competition, and getting image classifier out of that, and numerous other models. And now they've got a new CreateML app for developers that is a graphical user interface app. So you don't really need to know how to code to create models, which is really cool. It doesn't work that well. Could use a lot of development, but it is something I've been playing around with, and I think it was a step in the right direction, and I think it was always going that way. But those are the two main things on the on macOS Catalina that I've been playing around with on the developer side.
Okay, fantastic. No, that's cool that you can, because there's no way I would have looked into that. So I'm glad you could.
Yeah, because they used to have like it integrated into Swift Playgrounds where you could drag and drop like a folder containing images in subfolders, and it would create a classifier for you. So when I went to do that again, it was like, oh no, this doesn't exist anymore. I was like, what do you mean? And then I saw, okay, it's a CreateML app, and played with that, and I've been messing around with that a bit.
Cool. Well, speaking of apps, I downloaded the SF Symbols app. So you mentioned SF Symbols previously, around the time that the keynote was, and I'd sort of completely forgotten they'd ever mentioned that. But looking into it, it's totally up my alley. So basically, Apple have the San Francisco font. As you know, you see it everywhere, all over the products. And this font comes with 9 different weights. And basically, they've now incorporated 1,500 symbols that developers can use within their apps within this font. There's a Mac app for it called SF Symbols. You can view everything that's there, and you're able to export specific icons and everything. And they're also available in 3 different sizes. So, I installed this app. It's very cool. Apple actually allow you to create your own icon based on an existing SF symbol, so you can select one, export it, and it says that you can tweak it however you wish, in like a vector program. But there are some exclusions, like you're not allowed to mess around with the ones for iCloud, Markup, Mail, Safari, stuff that's their official apps. You got to leave them alone.
That's fair enough.
As per the site, but yeah, it's cool, man. I mean, how I love myself some tasty icons, and this is just like. Just seeing hundreds of them on screen, I'm like, oh, this is a really thin version. I wonder what the fat version looks like. I was like, oh, yes, this is awesome. So
I love that they allow you to export and edit in a vector-based program. I did not know about that at all, and I'm super excited about that. I think that's amazing, and yeah, just so cool. So one of the things that I've seen online is people saying, oh, they aren't very high res, but if you can export to vector, then how are they not like high res?
I don't know. I don't know how people have done this, because I actually exported one of them to use for this episode's cover art, and yeah, it was perfectly vector. Export them as SVG, and they were crisp, they were clean, and everything. I don't know how they're getting those results. Maybe there's some sort of weird beta bug going on in how it's rendering the icons. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh man, that's
the app
cool.
itself is cool. Yeah. Also, macOS Catalina is actually run on a dedicated system volume, so it's read-only, so you can't actually accidentally stuff around with any of the system files or overwrite them or anything. So that just, I never do that anyway, but it's just good to know that it's kind of like keeping it as safe as possible. Approving things, authenticating things with Apple Watch with a little double click on the side.
That works
perfect for Macs that don't have Touch ID. Yeah.
I've been using that quite a bit.
Yours.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously myself, I'm always continuously been using Touch ID, but yeah, it's great that they can bring that functionality elsewhere.
So anytime you need to put in a system password, you can use that. Things like installing apps, changing system settings, anything like that. It's been really useful when trying to get my computer to allow me to work from home and installing about 400 things and changing certificate permissions and all of that. Well, at least that made it slightly easier.
You'd be giving that side button a workout.
Yep.
So. You can actually hover on some, if you hover over some text, you can get a zoomed view of it. This would probably help if you've got a lot of tiny text on screen and you want to make some fine-tuned changes or whatever. And shared folders in Notes, and not just shared notes. I think that's really cool. And the fact that searching within Notes now gets object recognition. So you can have some images in there, much like you can search within the Photos app, but apply that to the Notes app.
That is really cool. I mean, it's fairly easy to implement, because you just have to run a model through that. They already have that model designed for photos, so it's super easy just to call that model and get the things and store them per note. But it's good attention to detail, and I like that that's happening. There was something. One of the things that I forgot to mention was like context-aware text selection. So in iOS and iPadOS, it will now know that what you're selecting is part of like a name. So let's say it has Taylor Swift and you double tap Taylor, it will now select Taylor Swift. So you can...
Like same with addresses and
yeah,
stuff
exactly.
as well,
Addresses. Well, I don't think phone numbers is always really had like, it's always had something like that. But yeah, any sort of proper noun, I guess.
Yes. Okay. That's cool. All right. Now, we've clearly been, hinting at this and leading up to this. We might as well talk about it. The impending death of 3D Touch. So where are you sitting with this? Because obviously Apple have been boosting this sort of like right-click style functionality with iPadOS and bring it to, previous iPhones that don't even have 3D Touch. You've got Haptic Touch in the 10R. Will the iPhone 11 go as far as to just not have 3D Touch? Like, what's your thoughts on where they're going with this?
I hate to break it, but the iPhone XS does not have 3D Touch on iOS 13. It is completely removed.
Gone.
So even the Peek and Pop developer API is deprecated in iOS 13.
Oh.
So
it still functions, it's just delayed.
No,
it's just slower.
No, it does. So maybe in like one or two entire areas, like
where like mail and stuff.
No, not on the system apps. Only on third-party apps where it's not yet. Like, rather just view it as 3D Touch is completely removed. Peek and Pop does not exist. Think about like websites where the whole press harder notation does not exist. So. Even with quick actions on a app icon, no matter how hard you press, until you let go, it will not pop up with the extra actions. So it's more just like, okay, it does give you haptic feedback to say, okay, time to pop up now, but it's not the old 3D Touch. It's completely different.
Oh.
So even popping into photos, so you can peek a photo, but it's not because you're 3D touching it. It's like a long press on it, and then it will come up with your extra options, and then you can have to tap it again for it to actually open that. So it is not...
What a bummer.
There's no, as as I said earlier, the iPhone XS does not have 3D touch on iOS 13.
That is crazy, because physically it's able to, but software, it's been removed.
I'm so upset about this. Like, I considered skipping a generation because one of the reasons I rather got the XS was 3D touch. I did not want to move back. So, now they've brought forward the devices that didn't have 3D touch because they get a lot of the functionality is still there. Like now 90% of it is covered through different actions, but some of it is much worse because you can't do it in one fluid, like peek pop a website the way that I always did, or peek pop a photo or a link. Like it just, it doesn't work the same way and it sucks. I used something for quick actions off an app icon were so important to me. Open a new tab, send a message to this person, open the camera, all of those things I used all the time.
And so now, if you were to do that on an app, it's treated like haptic touch. Is that what you're
so
saying?
you have to hold it for long, and then you have to let go, and then tap again on that other thing, versus press hard and swipe up to where you want to be. It does not work. It does not work.
What the... Wow. I thought this was just going to be like a segment where we sort of cast a bit of speculation and not you actually putting the final down.
No, it's dead. I know, I could tell by your note setup, but it is dead. I'm one of the biggest, evangelists for 3D Touch. So I was super upset about this. At least they guaranteed that I'll buy an iPhone 11. Because now it doesn't matter. By that point, I'll be used to it, but it is worse.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, man. Oh, well, I better get onto the betas when the public ones roll around. Then I got to get used to it. So I use 3D Touch for so many things.
Yeah, on the iPad though, what it's gained on the iPad has been fantastic.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
That's only because it didn't have that option before. But what I've lost on the iPhone XS is bad.
Equalize they're trying to bring parity to the experience across the entire software set.
Yeah.
Rather than
So I wonder if they'll pass the saving on by removing that component, because it was definitely more expensive. So
I hope so, but I don't think so. Oh man, that is a bummer. Okay, well I guess that's essentially given me the answers I was I was looking for. So one other thing I want to discuss is the idea of another Pro Display. So I love the whole naming of Pro Display XDR. I certainly think it is great value for money for its class of display, being a reference monitor. Obviously, we've mentioned the whole way that they separated the stand pricing. They could have done that a completely different way and not even given it a separate price. So that's been the biggest kickback in terms of PR wise and stuff, and all the headlines and crap that you get. But that being said, I think that Apple should still release another monitor, a 5K one, that has a similar front design, a different rear design, so be much more iMac style, have an iMac style stand, so no fancy rotating stand, the same type of specs as the iMac 5K display, and therefore bring the price point much closer to an LG Ultrafine, and they should just call it Apple Pro Display. So what do you think about this, given that all we have now is a really awesome, super top-tier display, and then LG?
I agree with you, but I think they really marketed the other one as like a true Pro display in every single way. So I think that I agree on everything it should offer, except I think it should just be called Apple Display.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think and then it's marketed to everyone, right? This is your secondary display, no matter who you are.
Because if they were to release something as I described, I reckon I'd totally get it, because I could just plug my MacBook Pro in there. Perfect. So I don't want to have to go into the ultrafine realm just to have a external display. So yeah. All right. Well, my follow-up question to this is, with Pro being such a wide spectrum and applying to, and it's not just Apple, you see it everywhere. Should the Mac Pro have been called something else, given the fact that it's like a super top tier, such as Mac Studio, or a previous guest on Apple Slice, Andrew Doyle, suggested Mac Industrial? So I certainly see the reasoning for a lower spec Mac Tower, but I don't think they're going to go there, because I think the popularity of the laptop line and where the iMacs sit certainly fills that base of that user base. So I don't think Apple are going to go there tower wise, but in terms of just being able to people wrapping their heads around where it sits in terms of what level of Pro, should they have used a different name?
Sure. I think Mac Studio rolls off the tongue pretty well. I think that's pretty. It also gives you at least a environment setting of where it belongs. Because you could have a development studio or a photography studio. Exactly.
3D studio.
So all of those Pro elements that they had, except for maybe a science lab. Now, one of the things that confuses me is that people want it to be super high spec until they have to pay for it. They're like, we want the best computer, but oh no, you made the best one and then it's out of our league. So can we have a not so good one and just pay you less for it? It's like, well, we had that one and that wasn't great. So we're not going to do that anymore. One of the things that the whole naming thing does lead me back to is, the Pro name does now mean something different at Apple because of the Pro workflow team. So that's a new team that I think got started at Apple in the last few years, just I think early 2017, around the time of the round table. And that's basically they, just hire a bunch of people that are super pros in their respective fields, and then they just give feedback to Apple on, they're part of the design and development process, at every point and this is what happens. You end up with a Mac Pro that is world beating, right? It is a great machine. And, the next round of MacBook Pros will incorporate their feedback, and so will iPad Pro also include their feedback. So Pro at Apple it does mean that it's consulted by the pro workflow team. So we can also expect changes in those lineups to bring these devices even more forward. So I'm sure that in iPad OS 13 it includes feedback from that team, but hardware wise plus the new direction of the software, I think we can really continue to see growth in iPad in terms of being like an amazing machine over the next few years.
So you're telling me that I could possibly have a cheese grater iPad?
You could.
Fantastic.
Take
I've always
it
wanted a
camping.
portable cheese grater. Yeah. Just take it out for lunch. Oh, I'm just going to do a bit of drawing. Oh, what's that? Rub a bit of cheese over my, spaghetti or something.
Well, you could sharpen your pencil on the cheese grater.
Oh, yes. Fantastic. We're just going to quickly wrap this up with just some more hilarity. So, just want to list off what's not happening in the foldable world?
Well, they're not being, the foldables are not shipping. So AT&T cancelled all of the Fold pre-orders, and Huawei is now postponing their launch to perform more testing on the Mate X. So
yes.
Their spokesperson said, we don't want to launch a product to destroy our reputation, which is
what reputation?
Well, I think that's hilarious because you say what reputation, and that's fair. I think in Australia or other parts of the world, but it is a massive dig at Samsung, and also is saying like we don't want to even destroy our tiny reputation because this will, the Mate X. If they obviously knew there were going to be issues, so. That one was still supposedly going to run on Android, as it was announced prior to Google banning Huawei from using it. So that would have been under different licensing agreements.
But can you imagine that? Like just getting a device knowing that like this is the only version of Android it's going to run?
I would never buy one. I would never.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't, but like if you were that person.
No, that's what I mean. I would never buy it because of that reason. Like it would be a reason, a non-starter for me. I mean, even if I was keen on, But I just think like the whole foldable PR was well played because these devices were not mainstream, but they got everyone talking about how they're all, light years ahead of Apple. Where's Apple's folding 5G blah blah phone? Meanwhile, these guys did not ship it. It was a prototype. I mean, these things do not exist. You cannot buy one. And for me, that was the biggest. It was a good PR play because everyone who said to me at the time, like, oh, where's Apple's folding phone? They're not, steering clear of me now because these phones didn't ship. They don't even know that these phones didn't ship because they don't ship. Care.
I know. Yeah. It's just a thing to try and rub up their Apple loving coworker the wrong way, and
exactly.
But it's just this is the perfect example of why being first isn't always the best. This is a clear mistake in terms of trying to rush to be first so quickly.
Yeah. And there's been no progress on the Fold's design, which is no surprise because they said it was in the works for like 6 or 7 years, and then it come April and this thing is a disaster. They're like, oh, we'll fix it in a couple of weeks. Like, what are you going to do in a couple of weeks that you did not do in 6 or 7 years?
It's crazy. And lastly, we're going to cap this off with Apple Bondi is reopening on June 29th at 9:30 a.m. So hey, if you're around Sydney or around Bondi, you'd want to be there for the fresh look for the store. So yes. I want you, Nick, to just let the international listeners know, how should Apple Bondi be pronounced?
Bondi. I'm just kidding. As you said, Apple Bondi.
Bondi. There you go. The Bondi Blue iMac Apple Bondi store. There we go. Okay, that brings us to the end of episode 77. Appleslice is part of Ozcast Network. You can check us out and plenty of other great podcasts at auscastnetwork.com. Please search for us in your player if this is your first time listening, and subscribe. Leave a review in the Apple Podcast. That will be greatly appreciated. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with Appleslice, and everything is posted to appleslice.com.au. So any last thoughts? Are you just going to continue that beat of life and see what else you come up with?
Just going to continue the beat of life and see what else I come up with.
Fantastic. All right, I'll catch you next time.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.